Alright, this is episode 3 in the HammerNoggin series, where we have taken a GroBoto model, imported it into Modo, and using the GroBoto-to-modo Toolkit have been refining it and working it up. You should definitely take a look at the earlier videos if you haven't already, because we're going to kind of jump to a higher level here and look at more of the why things work, not just how to use the tools. For example, the inset here is showing you that the 3 seam rows on the inside of the center line of the seam towards the patch we have selected with the weight and slice tool are the ones that have been subdivided and are providing that nice transition between the patch or part that we are manipulating, the kind of top of his skull or skull cap, if you will, there, between that and the rest of the model. The stuff you see me doing there is very typical. I'm using a combination of the weight map created by the weight and slice tool, along with some of Modo's standard fall-off aids like the linear fall-off that you see in play there, that elongated triangular form. That is working together with the weights created by the weight and slice tool, that being a gradient of weights right along those seam rows that we talked about a moment ago that have been divided. So it's the combination of the linear fall-off and those weights that allow us to do this kind of manipulation. We kind of skipped over the setup and application of the weight and slice tool at the very beginning of this video, but don't worry, it'll come up again. And again, you should look at about 3 or 4 videos preceding this that cover that stuff in detail. For this next bit, we're going to use a couple of the global fall-off maps created by GroBoto, and you see them there. They provide a kind of a gentle, broader scope dampening or modulating of a tool. And you'll see that here as I apply the scale tool. There you can see the map as it looks in GroBoto, that green inset. But as I applied the scale tool, you'll notice that it pinches in more towards the center of the patch where it was green in that GroBoto image. And by combining this, once again, with a linear fall-off, I can kind of control where it is applied. And in this case, I wanted it to really be concentrated in that area around the lip. So I used it vertically. I used the linear fall-off vertically and horizontally to focus the effect. And you'll also notice that since we have a patch selected, and indeed the weight and slice script was applied to it, it pulled that part of his mouth up away from his lip, creating this nice ledge along the lip. Very clean effect. Next, it's on to this ball that's part of the joint structure of the neck. And when I set this up in GroBoto, as you can see from the insets, I deliberately set up a sphere within a sphere to give me that little ridge down the center. And when I saw where the seams fell, I knew that indeed I would be able to do this kind of modeling where I'm expanding that center ridge. Again, of course, having set it up with the weight and slice tool, expanding it and getting this wonderful little tuck effect with those cylinders that plug into the sphere. So onto this little sphere that is part of the hole in the head, and a similar thing, weight and slice, and here just a little bit of scaling, and it goes from being kind of a trivial intersection of objects to one with wonderful beveled detail. So right from there into this rim, this inner rim, and here we're going to use the global maps, the weight maps that we talked about before, that are created by GroBoto and imported. And they provide that sort of broader range, softer reshaping. There we're taking a look at the map. And as usual, the weight and slice tool was also used to define the boundary. But you can see as now as I apply that tool, nothing more than simple scaling is creating this wonderful curvilinear effect where that surface tapers up to meet the rods that it connects to. So I'm sure you're getting the idea by now. There's a almost endless array of ways you can combine Modo's tools and its fall-offs with these maps. So much so that I'm going to just let this part run because it's something that you've seen many times before here and in the earlier videos. And it's just me playing with a whole bunch of endless varieties for this simple little notion of indentation on this cylinder. I'm just going to let that play and set it up for the next more interesting, somewhat more ambitious bit of modeling we're going to do. I'm going to be setting out to widen his mouth. And in order to do that, I'm going to use a combination of the global weight maps imported from GroBoto, the weight and slice tool, of course, and together use those to expand that area while protecting other areas of the model. And in order to do that, I'm going to do something we haven't touched on before, and that is I'm going to make a copy of that original weight map imported from GroBoto and alter it to fit our purpose. So here we go. First of all, I'm going to select the area that I'm interested in, which is this whole lower jaw and jowl and mouth area. And I'm simply using the lasso tool there plus shift clicking to make sure that I've selected all of the parts or patches in that area. And you want to make sure you get them all so you don't have any weird tearing or skewing or stressing of patches. There I use the weight and slice tool to define those edges and give them some extra rows. And now I'm creating a copy of that original imported weight map. And I want a copy so that I can create a special version of it where a lot of this stuff that I've just isolated down there at the bottom by removing some of the patches can be made solid so it will move and reshape as a whole. I'm going to go ahead and save that. It'll be saved as vertices so that I can later make it solid within the map. So here you see the original map and its copy, and they are the same. But we're going to use that selection set, reselect it here, and simply use the weight tool to fill in those areas, those centers of those patches, down there in the lower part of his jaw. So now we have a nice solid chunk that can be manipulated and reshaped as a whole without accentuating the seams and boundaries between patches. And as usual, there's plenty of flexibility here. I realized later that I wanted the chin to be excluded from that solid area. No problem whatsoever. I can select it as a patch using the Materials Select option. Go back to the original, copy it, and paste it into our new modified map, and the chin is restored to the way it was in the original map, while we still kept all of that solid area that we wanted. So now we're ready to do a little actual reshaping. And once things are set up like this, there's not much to it. In fact, it gets to be quite fun because it is very forgiving and allows you to play and explore as much as you want. So here again, good old linear fall off. Don't know what I would do without it. I want the effect to start somewhat lower on his cheek. I don't want it to expand much there, and I want it to reach full force above his lips here so that entire lower area expands more or less uniformly. Yowza! Thunderstorms in Colorado. So there you see it. Works quite nicely, but I did notice that area around the nose is expanding, and I don't want that gap, that seam showing up there. So I can dynamically adjust the linear fall off and taper that off. And there would be other ways you could mask that out in more sophisticated ways, but this seemed to work just fine, so I went with it. So now we have this kind of nice bell shape. And again, remember, it's really that GroBoto map, that weight map, that allows that to be such a graceful form where the cheeks and jowl flare outward. It's a beautifully constructed map, extremely smooth and accurate, and that gives you extremely smooth and accurate results. So that's it for this episode. I hope to take this thing all the way to a finish at some point, but next up we'll probably do a prequel where we look at how we go about creating the basic model in GroBoto. Hope to see you then. Thanks.